It's absolutely no secret that Spider-Man is one of the most popular superheroes of all time. This is not only due to his success in the comics, but also his consistent success in live action. And with the MCU looking to reboot after Avengers Secret Wars, we now have a new opportunity for Spider-Man to get even more success in live action. And with the MCU now gaining rights to characters like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, Marvel can open a whole new world of storytelling that also includes Spider-Man and his mythos alongside those other characters. So in this video, I'm going to be going over my ideal MCU Spider-Man saga that would take place post-Secret Wars. But very quickly before we get into the video, if you guys enjoy the content, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and also hit that hype button if you have that feature available. Diving right into the topic, I think that it's important to note that for this new MCU reboot, I do want a clean slate for Spider-Man in the sense that I would want him to be played by a different actor. Now, I just want to clarify, I have no actual problem with Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I actually really like his Spider-Man, but in the past, Tom Holland has alluded to potentially retiring from the role of Spider-Man, and he already kind of seems like he's getting tired of playing the character because he's already done it for so long. And I'm sure that this isn't because he doesn't like the character, but more so because of the fact that he wants to explore other things in his life, like settling down, having a family, X, Y, and Z. And with Spider-Man being such a major cornerstone of Marvel Comics, I really don't see Tom Holland being beneficial for the role because of the fact that Spider-Man, in my opinion, should appear a lot in this new MCU, whether it's in his own movies or he's simply cameoing in someone else's movie. Tom Holland is also nearly 30, and while I do agree that it's fine for Spider-Man to age up throughout his movies, I do think that a 30-year-old Spider-Man is a little bit too old for what I would ideally want to see Spider-Man as in the MCU post-reboot, because there's a lot of unexplored potential in his early 20s to late 20s years that we haven't seen in live action, in my opinion. That being said, if Tom Holland is in it for the long haul and he's completely fine with playing Spider-Man post-Secret Wars for an extended amount of time, then I'm fine with him staying in the role. I personally just don't think that that's the case, and I think that Marvel should utilize this opportunity to get a younger Spider-Man that can have a little bit more longevity in this new rebooted MCU alongside all the other heroes that they're going to recast. Now, before I explain what the first project in this saga is going to be, I want to explain the backstory of this version of Spider-Man and how I would change it from what it was currently in the MCU. First things first, I obviously wouldn't go all the way back to the beginning. If Spider-Man is going to be rebooted, I think that they should do something similar to what the DCU is doing with characters like Superman and Batman, where Spider-Man's already pretty experienced and we don't have to see his origin again. However, even though I want that to be the case, I would still tweak Spider-Man's origin to be more traditional. So instead of Aunt May dying like she did in No Way Home, I would have it go back to the traditional origin of Uncle Ben dying. I would also personally get rid of the Iron Boy Jr. dynamic with Tony Stark, because while it was enjoyed for the moment that it was there, I do think that it overall did serve as a detriment to MCU Spider-Man's character. And that's simply because of the fact that, to me, it took him a lot longer to progress into the Spider-Man that we know and love, and I think that that dynamic was the sole reason as to why it took so long. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, one of the most important aspects of the character of Spider-Man is the fact that no matter what he goes through, no matter how many inconveniences are in his life, he still finds his own way to be his own hero. And giving him the safety net of Iron Man, in my opinion, sort of derails that entire aspect of the character. And this isn't me saying that it wasn't present in the MCU at all, because it is. It's just not present to the degree at which I would want it to be. And if we look at some of the best Spider-Man stories across fiction, it's usually when he has to shoulder all of these burdens and overcome them by himself. And when I say by himself, I mean like as his own hero, not like help from MJ or Harry or somebody. That being said, we're going to be starting this saga out with Spider-Man: The Last Hunt. And I would obviously want this to be a live action movie that, if you couldn't tell from the title, is going to be based on Kraven's Last Hunt. As far as where I would want the film to pick up, like I already explained, Peter will be a more experienced Spider-Man, so this isn't going to be a year 1, 2, or even 3 story. In this new MCU, I would obviously want Peter to have started being Spider-Man when he was in high school, so at around 15 years old. And when we see Peter in this movie, my ideal age for him is going to be around 23 to 24 years old. So at this point, Peter's already out of college, he's already living on his own in his own apartment, and he has a stable relationship with Mary Jane. Because of the fact that he's also been Spider-Man for around 8 to 9 years at this point, he's also gone through a lot of the things that we've already seen adapted in live action. So for example, this version of Spider-Man will have already encountered characters like Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin. He also would have experienced the death of Gwen Stacy. And this is probably something that I would want to be hinted at in this movie so that fans know. And overall, at this point, most of Spider-Man's rogues gallery will already have been established. And to me, this works beautifully because of the fact that now in this new and improved MCU, we're going to have other Marvel heroes in New York City like Daredevil, Moon Knight, Punisher, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, etc. Moving back over to Peter's personal life, at this point he'll still be friends with Harry Osborn despite what happened in the past with Norman Osborn. He'll also have a great relationship with Aunt May, considering that in this universe it's a more traditional backstory for him, so she'll still be alive. And as always, because it's a Spider-Man story, even though Peter has a handle on some things, there's still a lot of other areas in his life that he just can't seem to rein in. So throughout this film, we'll see Peter struggling to make ends meet in certain aspects of his life. This will also be amplified because of the fact that at this point in Spider-Man's career, I personally would want him to be bonded with the symbiote. And this would be a direct callback to Secret Wars because of the fact that in Secret Wars, that's the very first time that he actually gets the black suit. And because of the fact that we're about to get Secret Wars in the MCU, which is going to lead into the reboot, I would effectively want Spider-Man to just carry the black suit from the Secret Wars movie into his rebooted new trilogy. And this will play a very pivotal role in how this trilogy plays out. Now we enter Kraven the Hunter, who, very similar to the source material, will be hunting Spider-Man because he sees Spider-Man as this means to prove that his life has had meaning and that he's lived an honorable life. To Kraven, hunting down Spider-Man and proving that he's better than him will be his ultimate trophy. So throughout this film, we'll see Kraven stalk Spider-Man when he goes on his patrols. During these stalking sessions, Kraven will witness Spider-Man going up against some of his rogues gallery. And to fit the theme of this movie being the hunter versus its prey, the villains that I'm going to have Spider-Man go up against are going to be his villains that are based on animals. So his first two encounters will be with the likes of Scorpion and Rhino, and his last encounter, which he will struggle with, will be with the likes of Vermin. And this is obviously pulled directly from the Last Hunt storyline in the comics. Eventually, Kraven will obviously confront Spider-Man and he will think that he has killed Spider-Man, burying him alive, leading to us getting this iconic moment recreated in live action, and also Kraven the Hunter donning a black suit Spider-Man costume. At this point, Kraven will then go on to try and prove that he's better than Spider-Man, so he will capture Vermin himself and fight Vermin. After subduing Vermin, Kraven will now be of the belief that he is better than Spider-Man. However, unbeknownst to Kraven, Spider-Man will actually still be alive, and this is when we will get the iconic moment of him coming out of the grave. From this point, a Spider-Man who is now weakened and exhausted will confront Kraven the Hunter and try to rescue Vermin, Rhino, and Scorpion. And this is important because it establishes that even though these are Spider-Man villains, Spider-Man does not kill, very similar to Batman. Now in this final encounter with Kraven, Spider-Man will actually be trapped by Kraven in an attempt to rescue these villains. And this is where Spider-Man will now be put through another test for Kraven to prove to himself again that he's better than Spider-Man. And that test is for Spider-Man to fight and attempt to defeat Vermin. And this final confrontation will serve as a battle of ideologies, because Kraven the Hunter thinks that he's superior to the likes of Spider-Man because of the fact that he's willing to go places that Spider-Man isn't to complete the hunt. And Spider-Man, being the hero he is, just simply isn't willing to go to those places. So in this final fight with Vermin, Spider-Man will actually come out on top while fighting the way that Spider-Man should fight. And even though Kraven loses the battle of ideologies because of the fact that Spider-Man doesn't lose himself, Kraven still considers himself the winner of the hunt because of how easily he was able to take down Vermin in relation to Spider-Man. And similar to the comic, the movie will end with Kraven taking his own life. And this is because, again, Kraven feels as if he has fulfilled his purpose on Earth. That being said, this will not be the end of Kraven the Hunter in this universe. Another character that I would want to be introduced in this movie specifically is the character of Miles Morales. And because of the fact that this movie is going to be set after Secret Wars, I think that it makes perfect sense for the Ultimate Universe to effectively be merged at this point, very similar to how it happens in the source material. As far as how I would introduce Miles Morales, I would actually have him work at Feast with Aunt May, because I think that that's a really organic way to introduce the character. That way it doesn't feel like he's shoehorned into the movie and Peter and him could have a natural dynamic. The next movie in this saga is going to be Spider-Man: The Enemy Within. And the main antagonist for this movie is going to be none other than Venom. Seeing Venom in the MCU is something that fans have been yearning for a very long time. And the MCU essentially blueballed us with this as well, with the post-credit scenes of Spider-Man: No Way Home, in which Eddie Brock leaves back a piece of the symbiote in the MCU. And also in one of the end credit scenes for the Venom movie, we see him looking at Spider-Man on TV. And even though we obviously got an adaptation of Venom in Spider-Man 3, personally, I've never really been a huge fan of that adaptation of Venom. And honestly, you could call me superficial for this criticism, but it really just stems from the design of this character not really being up to par. For one, I just feel like he was too small for Venom. I didn't like how they made his face, mouth, and tongue look as well. I feel like he looks a little bit weird, and not in the good way. I also don't like the suit design for Venom in this movie either at all. Now obviously the Sonyverse Venom design is significantly better. It's almost one-to-one with how the character looks in the comics, except obviously he just doesn't have the spider symbol across his chest and on his back, and that's because of the fact that he just hasn't met Spider-Man in this universe. But hopefully if we do get Venom in the MCU, he has his comic accurate design in terms of his size, the way he looks, and also like the white spider symbol and white squares on his hands. As far as the plot of this movie, because Venom has been adapted so many times, whether it's been in animation, movies, and gaming, it's kind of hard to make an original story utilizing the Venom character. So even though this may seem repetitive, I do genuinely think that the best play is to incorporate the same storyline that we've seen with Eddie Brock, in which he's also a reporter at the Daily Bugle who effectively has his life ruined by the likes of Spider-Man. And to tweak this story and to make it different than anything that we've seen in live action, what I would do is effectively make this story one-to-one with the comics. So another antagonist of this film will also be Sin Eater, and that will be the character that Eddie Brock tries to write a fake article on, and then when Peter exposes the real Sin Eater, Eddie Brock's credibility will effectively be down the drain. Another villain I think would be really cool to incorporate is Shocker, and that's specifically because of the fact that I think that his sound abilities can help Peter figure out a weakness to the Venom symbiote. And in the early parts of the film where Peter is showing more aggression and easily being more irritable, I think it would be really cool if we can get a reimagination of this moment from Spider-Man the Animated Series.
Get back here, Shocker! Shocker!
Another element that I think would be really cool to add into this film would be the incorporation of Oscorp. And the way I would implement Oscorp is that they would be trying to study the symbiote that Peter has bonded to him early on in the film. And this could be how Shocker gets involved with Spider-Man in the first place, because he could be paid by Norman Osborn to try and fight Spider-Man. And in this fight, he can extract a piece of the symbiote and take it back to Oscorp. Another natural progression that I would like to see in this movie is the relationship between Miles and Peter. Similar to MJ, Miles will now be aware that Peter is Spider-Man, and because of this, he will start to try and aid Peter. After Peter gets rid of the symbiote and it finally bonds with Eddie Brock, MJ and Miles can infiltrate Oscorp to try and get some dirt on them so that they can expose them to the public. And during this mission, I would have Miles actually get bitten by one of the spiders that bit Peter in the past. However, this version of the spider will be more modified, which will explain Miles having more powers than Peter. That being said, Miles' powers won't truly manifest in this film, and it will be saved for the next film. But ultimately, this movie would end with Peter confronting Venom in a final encounter and winning. Obviously, I would want Eddie Brock and Venom to be a lingering threat in the MCU, so I wouldn't kill them off in this movie. I would just have them defeated, but he would escape. The next project in this saga will be a TV series that will be titled Spider-Man Fractured Webs. And what I would want this TV series to adapt is the clone saga that introduces the likes of Ben Reilly and Kane Parker, while simultaneously showcasing the early days of Miles Morales taking on the mantle of Spider-Man. Not only would this be something different that we've seen from Spider-Man in live action because of the fact that now would be a live action TV series, but we could also flesh out a lot of Spider-Man storytelling throughout this series. Because not only could we adapt the Spider-Man clone saga with Jackal as the main antagonist through and through, a ton of other Marvel superheroes that reside in New York City could make cameos in this show because of the fact that it's longer form content. That we could have special appearances from the likes of Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and maybe even Moon Knight if Spider-Man and Moon Knight run into Vermin, because Moon Knight is a character that also consistently fights the likes of Vermin. That being said, even though I would want cameos, again, the main focus of this series is going to be to adapt the Clone Saga. And the introduction of these characters will be very important for the later projects in this saga. The third movie in this Spider-Man saga will be Spider-Man Sinister Six. And as you can obviously tell, the main villains of this movie will in fact be the Sinister Six. And I honestly think that it's just about time that we get a Sinister Six adaptation in live action. The closest that we've gotten to this is in Spider-Man No Way Home, because we had the likes of Electro, Green Goblin, Sandman, and Doc Ock. That being said, the Sinister Six roster that I would like to see in this movie would be Dr. Octopus as the head honcho, Green Goblin as the second in command, Electro, Vulture, Mysterio, and Sandman. Because of the fact that this version of Spider-Man again will be a very experienced Spider-Man, he'll already have a lot of established history with all of these characters, which ties into the plot of this movie because Doc Ock will have been planning this for years, and he'll effectively be the mastermind pulling the strings in this movie. This movie will also continue to progress the dynamic between Miles Morales and Peter Parker, showcasing Miles' progression as Spider-Man, which will start to tease him effectively taking over as Spider-Man in the future. After Peter and Miles struggle with defeating the Sinister Six because of their elaborate plan, a few months later we head right into the final Spider-Man movie in this saga, and that movie is Spider-Man Totem Hunt. And this movie will introduce one of the more popular Spider-Man villains that we haven't yet seen in live action, Morlun. And because of the fact that Moreland is going to be the main villain of this film, tonally I would want it to be more along the lines of a horror/thriller film. And not only is that something that's never really been done with a Spider-Man movie, it's also really the only way to give Moreland the true justice in live action that he deserves. Because if you're familiar with the character of Moreland, you know that he's like the Thanos of Spider-Man villains. As far as the plot of this film, it will showcase Moreland hunting other spider-powered people, starting with the likes of Kane Parker and Ben Reilly. And I know I technically haven't introduced these characters in the saga yet, but I'd also have Moreland hunting down the likes of Cindy Moon Silk and Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. To be honest, you could just headcanon them appearing in that Spider-Man series that I mentioned earlier. After all of these characters are significantly damaged by Moreland, they all manage to briefly escape with their lives, which actually leads to Moreland finding Peter, and then Peter and Moreland get into their very first encounter that Peter loses horribly, leading to Peter actually being saved by Miles Morales and rendezvousing with the rest of the spider-powered people. And this is where we find out that Moreland actually is a hunter of the spider totem, and he does this all around the multiverse. So these aren't the first spider-powered people that he's encountered, and he's actually taken down a ton of them in the past. And personally, this is where I would open the door to have Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man 2099 enter the picture, simply because of the fact that I would love to see this character in live action, and because of the story's purpose, I feel like he just makes sense to be there. But long story short, Spider-Man 2099 will help them devise a plan to take down Moreland. However, because of the fact that Moreland is so strong, the likes of Kane Parker and Ben Reilly will actually die in the process of trying to stop him. On top of that, the rest of the Spider family will also be severely injured, leaving them incapable of fighting. And this is where we'll see an exhausted Peter Parker have to make his last stand against Moreland, recreating one of the most iconic Spider-Man moments in comics. But ultimately, after a very long drawn-out battle, Spider-Man and the rest of the Spider family will eventually take down Moreland. At the end of the film, because of the fact that Miles Morales has progressed a lot as Spider-Man, Peter Parker will officially take a break as Spider-Man and allow Miles to fully step into the mantle. Now, personally, I would want this ending to be open-ended for Peter so that if they do change plans in the future and want him to return as Spider-Man, he can still do that. I don't want it to be closed off to where it makes no sense for him to return as Spider-Man at all. But overall, that is how I would do a MCU Spider-Man saga post-Secret Wars. Obviously, this saga didn't include Spider-Man cameo roles in the likes of Avengers movies or any other Marvel projects that they have going on that will require Spider-Man to appear in them. But as you can see, we already have 4 movies in one show, and that's why I was saying earlier in the video that I don't think that Tom Holland would be able to stick around for all of this, so I do genuinely think that it's in Marvel's best interest to recast him after the reboot. But that is going to wrap it up for this video, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and also hit that hype button if you have the feature available. And as always, it's been K the God. I'll catch you boys in the next one.